The turnaround is absolutely huge. Under Corberan, West Brom are up 7 positions. Now we see this talented but perhaps underachieving squad get some confidence. West Brom are on the longest current win streak in the Championship. It is 5 in a row for the Baggies, and maybe it's no coincidence. Carlos Corberan arrived as manager 6 games ago. The turnaround is absolutely huge. Prior to game number 1 for Corberan, the Baggies were 23rd with just 2 wins and 14 points from their first 16 games. Under Corberan, West Brom are up 7 positions, and his 15 points in 6 games means the points per game is up from a relegation level 0.88 to a championship winning 2.5. Before we take a look at what Corberan is getting right, let's just tick off the obvious caveats in terms of what went on before he arrived. We know that fast gains will flatten out. And forgive me if I use a dieting and fitness analogy, but look, if I were to spend a year eating badly and not exercising and then just make a simple change to a reasonable diet and some basic exercise, we will see me get some gains very, very quickly. But to really get things moving health-wise, I would need to do a little bit more. Now, this analogy obviously points to the performance of West Brom under Steve Bruce, which basically has allowed Corberan to come into a club with a year 2 parachute payment, a good squad capable of much better, riddled with a lack of confidence. I think we all knew that simply going from incompetent to competent was going to see a trend up, but I will say it's been more than that, hasn't it? 5 straight wins is the second longest winning streak of any team in the Championship, behind Norwich's 6-game run in August and September. Has Corberan had easy fixtures then so far? Well, not the first one. He lost against Sheffield United, who are currently in 2nd place. Other than that, I would say it hasn't been massively difficult in terms of opposition. Rotherham and Sunderland were in League One last season. Blackpool are down there in the bottom 3. Stoke, fairly middling. And despite being up in the top 6, QPR are right towards the bottom of most of the form tables. So that's the 2 arguments to say that this might be a flash in the pan. The simple return to mere competence after a dreadful start for an underachieving squad, and an okay run of opponents. What about the arguments then that say that this will continue? Just look first at the defensive numbers. Corberan's Huddersfield was so tough to break down on that brilliant run last season. And at West Brom, he's got 4 clean sheets in the past 5 games. Only 1 goal conceded. And look at the XG numbers. Against Blackpool, 0.15 against. QPR, 0.45. And Rotherham, 0.18. All very solid. Another thing that Corberan's Huddersfield were absolutely brilliant at was set pieces. First 2 games for West Brom, both 1-0 wins with set-piece goals. The opener against Stoke in the 3rd game was also the result of a recycled set-piece. And now we see this talented but perhaps underachieving squad get some confidence. Brandon Thomas Asante scores a worldie of an overhead volley against Stoke. There was an outside-of-the-foot beauty from Tom Rogic and a fantastic cross by Jed Wallace for Daryl Dike up at Sunderland. And Rogic was at it again with a filthy assist for Wallace in the last game against Rotherham. All of a sudden, these players who couldn't score for love nor money earlier in the season had the goals flowing very, very nicely. We also saw Grady Diangana on the score sheet. He was an absolute star back in Slaven Bilic's promotion team at West Brom, but he's really gone off the boil since then. Has Corberan got him going as well? Maybe, look, there's some timing issues working in Carlos Corberan's favour a little bit with some of those names. We know that Steve Bruce only got 1 start out of Rogic after his relatively late arrival to the season. He also only got 12 minutes out of Daryl Dike. Those 2 are fit and up to speed. What about Corberan then? Is this a good fit? Well, what about hitting that like button and subscribing if you're enjoying the video? And I will get to Carlos Corberan, and I do think it is a good fit. It was an absolutely brilliant performance for Huddersfield last season. All the more so when you realise he tried to play this open passing football in his first season there. He had the worst defence in the division, finished 2 places above the relegation zone. But he learned a hell of a lot, and it was a great pivot to a far more viable style. And as I said, Great on set pieces, 17-match undefeated streak in the middle of last season. Third place and ultimately defeat in the playoff final was way above what was expected at the John Smiths last year. When clubs are looking for new managers, we often see it presented that their options are kind of binary. Do they go young and untested, and we've seen plenty of those in the Championship this season, Kolo Touré would be the latest, or do they go older and proven, like a Tony Mowbray at Sunderland, or dare I say, Steve Bruce? Carlos Corberan seems to kind of cut right between that binary, doesn't he? He is young at 39, but he's also proven to a certain extent with those 2 years in the Championship and the excellent performance at Huddersfield. He seems to have a good hybrid of technical reference points from the Bielsa passing style in his time at Leeds, which he did experiment with in season 1 at Huddersfield, to that more pragmatic approach last season. Maybe now, with the players at his disposal at West Brom, he'll have a little bit more latitude and more choice in terms of style. But we know the deal for the parachute teams, don't we? Just get promoted, get out of there, no matter how you do it, before the money runs out. Baggies fans will also hope that that short run earlier in the season at Olympiacos is a bit of an outlier and not worth reading too much into. My take, for what it's worth, I like Carlos Corberan a lot. I do think there is some kind of reasonable argument to be made that just getting things ship-shape and those nice run of fixtures have helped, and we're going to see a trend up. But that by no means dissuades me from thinking that the upward trend is going to continue. Obviously not probably at 2.5 points per game. At time of recording, it's a 5-point gap up to the playoffs. We've got half a season to go. Baggies even have a game in hand tomorrow night. Yes, there is a lot of traffic in the way, but West Brom are probably more viable than the majority of teams in their way. A lot of players in their squad have been there, done it, and the likes of Swift, Wallace and DK were difference makers at their club, even if they don't necessarily have promotions on their CVs. Let me know your thoughts down there in the comments. Can Corberan take the Baggies up into the promotion race and continue that trend up during the second half of the season? Seems to be rather big parallels with Middlesbrough here. Underachieving team, seemingly safe, experienced pair of hands in the dugout from the start of the season, but poor form, a managerial change and a surge up the table. Maybe there's even more of an upside for West Brom than the Borough in this situation, with Corberan's extra experience, a few more star names, maybe a few more pennies to spend on salary as well. Who knows? Why not click up here to make the comparison and look at the other Championship side we're expecting to make a charge, like West Brom, from the back of the pack.